In 1350 BC, an Egyptian woman could pee on a bag of wheat to find out if she was pregnant, and it worked. Meanwhile, it took the rest of the world another 3,000 years to come up with the pharmacy version. So before we start feeling superior about our smartphones and our electric cars, maybe we should talk about what the Egyptians were up to, because it's embarrassing for us. Ancient Egypt lasted about 3,000 years. For context, the Roman Empire lasted around 500. The United States has been around for 250, and we already look tired. Egypt just kept going. 31 dynasties, hundreds of pharaohs. If Civilization was a TV show, Egypt ran for 3,000 seasons and never got canceled. And Cleopatra, the last pharaoh, she lived closer in time to us right now than to the people who built the Great Pyramids. The pyramids were already 1,000 years old when she showed up. She would have looked at them the same way we look at medieval castles. Ancient history to her, that's how old Egypt is. It has layers. Okay, so the thing about Egypt that nobody really warns you about is that once you start comparing their daily life to ours, you start losing like a lot in ways that are genuinely annoying. So let's go through it. Workers who built the pyramids were paid in beer, 4 to 5 liters a day per person. That was their salary. The Egyptian government was handing out beer like a company handing out gym memberships, except people actually used it, and this wasn't party beer. Egyptian beer was thick, low alcohol, full of nutrients. More like a protein shake that got you slightly buzzed. Kids drank it, grandma drank it, the pharaoh drank it, it was the national water. They even had a goddess of beer, Hathor. Goddess of beer, music, and love, which honestly is the best combo of responsibilities any deity has ever had. Meanwhile, Greek gods were out there turning people into spiders and throwing lightning bolts. Hathor was just vibes. Okay, but forget the beer for a second. Egyptians had toothpaste 4,000 years ago. Okay? Crushed rock salt, mint, dried flowers, pepper. Dental researchers actually tested this recipe in 2003 and said it worked surprisingly well. Better than a lot of stuff people in Europe were using in the 1800s, as in your great-great-grandma might have had worse dental hygiene than a pharaoh from the Bronze Age. Everyone in Egypt wore eyeliner. Everyone. Men, women, pharaohs, farmers, priests. Big, thick black stuff called kohl. And yeah, it looked cool, but that wasn't the point. Kohl was antibacterial. It protected their eyes from infection and cut down sun glare in the desert, so they weren't doing makeup. They were wearing medical equipment on their face. That also happened to look incredible. Egyptian women could own property, start businesses, initiate divorce, and testify in court. In 1500 BC, a woman in ancient Egypt had more legal rights than a woman in the United States in 1900. I want you to sit with that for a moment. 1500 BC versus 1900 AD, 3,400 years apart. And the older civilization was more progressive. That's not a fun fact. That's an indictment. Oh, and the pregnancy test thing from the beginning, that wheat and barley trick, scientists in 1963 decided to actually test it. The hormones in pregnant women's urine really do accelerate seed growth, 70% accuracy. From a test invented 3,300 years earlier, there's a lab somewhere that spent grant money confirming that ancient Egypt was right all along. Cats. We need to talk about the cats. Egyptians didn't have cats as pets. Cats were sacred. Killing a cat, even accidentally, was punishable by death. When your family cat died, everyone in the household shaved off their eyebrows, and they mummified the cats with tiny mouse mummies next to them as snacks for the afterlife. The internet thinks it invented being weird about cats. Egypt was there first, and they were not messing around. Egyptian doctors had specialties: eye doctors, dentists, stomach doctors, and one guy whose actual title was Guardian of the Royal Backside. That was his job. That's what it said on his ancient LinkedIn. They used honey on wounds, which actually works because honey is naturally antibacterial. And they pressed moldy bread onto infections. Mold on bread. As medicine, which is penicillin, they had penicillin, just not on purpose. In 1170 BC, the workers building the royal tombs stopped getting paid no grain, no beer. Remember, beer was salary, so they did something that had never been done before in recorded history. They went on strike, they sat down, chanted, "We are hungry," and refused to work until they got paid, and it worked. First labor strike ever. These guys invented the concept of not taking it anymore. Side note, the pyramid workers were not slaves. That's a myth that won't die. Archaeological digs found worker villages with bakeries, breweries, medical facilities. They ate beef. They had days off. Some of them carved graffiti on the pyramid stones. Team names. One crew called themselves the Drunkards of Menkar. That was their official work crew name, carved into one of the 7 wonders of the world. Absolute legends. They had board games. Their favorite was Senet, one of the oldest board games ever found, from around 3100 BC. Everyone played it. Rich, poor, pharaohs, kids, and when you died, they buried a Senet board in your tomb so you could play in the afterlife. Which means somewhere in the Egyptian afterlife, someone has been on an unbeatable winning streak for 4,000 years, and nobody can stop them. Now, mummification. This is where it gets weird even by Egyptian standards. The whole process took 70 days. They pulled your brain out through your nose with a metal hook because they thought the brain was useless, worthless organ, threw it away. The heart was what mattered to them. Then they removed everything else, packed the body in salt for 40 days, stuffed it with linen, wrapped it up. 70 days of work per person. That's more effort than most of us put into moving apartments. 3,000 years. They built things that still stand. They wrote medical texts we're still studying. They gave workers beer and days off and healthcare. Their women had rights that most of the world wouldn't see again for millennia. And they figured out most of it without electricity, engines, or anyone to copy from. They just looked at the desert and said, yeah, we can work with this. And then they built a civilization that outlasted almost everything that came after it. Pregnancy tests, antibiotics, labor rights, dental care, and a beer-based economy 4,000 years ago. We're not as far ahead as we think.